The Setting Sun in the Rolling World, Charles Mungoshì. Old Musoni raised his dusty eyes from his hoe and the unchanging stony earth he had been tilling and peered into the sky. The white speck whose sound had disturbed his work and thoughts was far out at the edge of the yellow sky, near the horizon. Then it disappeared quickly over the southern rim of the sky, and he shook his head. He looked to the west. Soon the sun would go down. He looked over the sun-blasted land and saw the shadows creeping east, blearier and taller with every moment that the sun shed each of its rays. Unconsciously wishing for rain and relief, he bent down again to his work and did not see his son, Namo, approaching. Namo crouched in the dust near his father and greeted him. The old man half raised his back, leaning against his hoe, and said what had been bothering him all day long. "You haven't changed your mind?" "No, father." There was a moment of silence. Old Musoni scraped earth off his hoe. "Have you thought about this, son?" "For weeks, father." "And you think that's the only way?" "There is no other way." The old man felt himself getting angry again, but this would be the last day he would talk to his son. If his son was going away, he must not be angry. It would be equal to a curse. He himself had taken chances before, in his own time, but he felt too much of a father. He had worked and slaved for his family, and the land had not betrayed him. He saw nothing now but disaster and death for his son out there in the world. Lions had long since vanished, but he knew of worse animals of prey. Animals that wore redder claws than the lions. Beasts that would not leave an unprotected homeless boy alone. He thought of the white metal bird and he felt remorse. Think again. You will end dead. Think again of us, of your family. We have a home, poor though it is. But can you think of a day you have gone without? I have thought everything over, Father. I am convinced this is the only way out. There is no only way out in the world, except the way of the land, the way of the family. The land is overworked and gives nothing now, Father, and the family is almost broken up. The old man got angry. Yes, the land is useless. True, the family tree is uprooted and it dries in the sun. True, many things are happening that haven't happened before, that we did not think would happen, ever. But nothing is more certain to hold you together than the land and a home, a family. And where do you think you are going, a mere beardless kid with the milk not yet dry on your baby nose? What do you think you will do in the great treacherous world where men twice your age have gone and returned with their backs broken, if they returned at all? What do you know of life? What do you know of the false honeybird that leads you the whole day through the forest to a snake's nest? But all he said was, "Look, what have you asked me and I have denied you? What that I have I not given you for the asking? All. You have given me all, Father." And here too the son felt hampered, patronized, and his pent-up fury rolled through him. It showed on his face but stayed under control. "You have given me damn all and nothing. You have sent me to school and told me the importance of education, and now you ask me to throw it on the rubbish heap and scrape for a living on this tired cold shell of the moon. You ask me to forget it and muck around in this slow dance of death with you. I have this one chance of making my own life, once in all eternity, and now you are jealous. You are afraid of your own death. It is, after all, your own death. I shall be around a while yet. I will make my way home if a home is what I need. I am armed more than you think and wiser than you can dream of." But all he said too was, "Really, Father, have no fear for me. I will be all right. Give me this chance. Release me from all obligations and pray for me." There was a spark in the old man's eyes at these words of his son. But just as dust quickly settles over a glittering pebble revealed by the hoe, so a murkiness hid the gleam in the old man's eye. Words are handles made to the smith's wooden fancy and are liable to break under stress. They are too much fat on the hard, unbreaking sinews of life. Do you know what you are doing, son? Yes. Do you know what you will be a day after you leave home? Yes, Father. A homeless, nameless vagabond living on dust and rats' droppings, living on thank yous, sleeping up a tree or down a ditch, in the rain, in the sun, in the cold, with nobody to see you, nobody to talk to, nobody at all to tell your dreams to. Do you know what it is to see your hopes come crashing down like an old house out of season, and your dreams turning to ash and dung without a tang of salt in your skull? Do you know what it is to live without a single hope of ever seeing good in your own lifetime? And to himself, do you know, young, bright, ambitious son of my loins, the ruins of time and the pains of old age? Do you know how to live beyond a dream, a hope, a faith? Have you seen black despair, my son? I know it, Father. I know enough to start on. The rest I shall learn as I go on. Maybe I shall learn to come back. The old man looked at him and felt, come back where? Nobody comes back to ruins. You will go on, son. Something you don't know will drive you on along deserted plains, past ruins and more ruins, on and on until there is only one ruin left, yourself. You will break down without tears, son. You are human too. Learn to the haya, the rain bird, and heed its warning of coming storm. Plow no more, it says. And what happens if the storm catches you far, far out on the treeless plain? What then, my son? But he was tired. They had taken over 2 months discussing all this, going over the same ground like animals at a drinking place, until, like animals, they had driven the water far deep into the stony earth, until they had sapped all the blood out of life and turned it into a grim skeleton. And now they were creating a stampede on the dust, groveling for water. Mere thoughts, mere words. And what are words? Trying to grow a fruit tree in the wilderness. Go, son, with my blessings. I give you nothing. And when you remember what I am saying, you will come back. The land is still yours. As long as I am alive, you will find a home waiting for you. Thank you, Father. Before you go, see Chiremba. You are going out into the world. You need something to strengthen yourself. Tell him I shall pay him. Have a good journey, son. Thank you, Father. Namo smiled and felt a great love for his father. But there were things that belonged to his old world that were just lots of humbug on the mind, empty load, useless scrap. He would go to Chiremba, but he would burn the charms as soon as he was away from home in its sickening environment. A man stands on his feet and guts. Charms were for you, so was God, though much later. But for us now the world is godless. No charms will work. All that is just the opium you take in the dark in the hope of a light. You don't need that now, you strike a match for a light, Namo laughed. He could be so easily lighthearted. Now his brain worked with a fury only known to visionaries. The psychological ties were now broken. Only the biological tied him to his father. He was free. He too remembered the aeroplane, which his father had seen just before their talk. Space had no bounds and no ties. Floating laws ruled the darkness, and he would float with the fiery balls. He was the sun, burning itself out every second and shedding tons of energy which it held in its power, giving it the thrust to drag its brood wherever it wanted to. This was the law that held him, the mystery that his father and ancestors had failed to grasp, and which had caused their being wiped off the face of the earth. This thinking reached such a pitch that he began to sing, imitating as intimately as he could Satchmo's voice. What a wonderful world! It was Satchmo's voice that he turned to when he felt buoyant. Old Musoni did not look at his son as he left him. Already his mind was trying to focus at some point in the dark, unforeseeable future. Many things could happen, and while he still breathed, he would see that nothing terribly painful happened to his family, especially to his stubborn lastborn, Namo. Tomorrow before sunrise, he would go to see Chiremba and ask him to throw bones over the future of his son. And if there were a couple of ancestors who needed appeasement, he would do it while he was still around. He noticed that the sun was going down, and he scraped the earth off his hoe. The sun was sinking slowly, bloody red, blunting and blurring all the objects that had looked sharp in the light of day. Soon a chilly wind would blow over the land, and the cold, cloudless sky would send down beads of frost like white ants over the unprotected land.